Wind howls across frozen mountains. Snow drifts like ash in a dying fire. In the distance, boots crunch through ice, rifles rattle, and the low growl of engines echoes through the valley. This is not just a battlefield. This is the Chosin Reservoir, North Korea, winter of 1950, where the temperature dropped to 40 below and hell froze solid. When I wrote The Chosen's Chosen, I wanted to capture the grit, defiance, and brotherhood of those Marines and soldiers who fought through 17 days of terror and frostbite, surrounded by an army many times their size, and refused to die quietly. In October 1950, General Douglas MacArthur's forces had pushed deep into North Korea, chasing what was left of the North Korean People's Army. They thought the war was nearly over. Victory seemed close, until they hit the mountains around the Chosin Reservoir. That's when everything changed. Mao Zedong secretly sent hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops, elite divisions hardened by years of civil war, across the Yalu River. They came in silence, crossing in darkness, spreading out through the hills to strike American and UN forces by surprise. By late November, the 1st Marine Division, frozen, exhausted, and stretched thin, was surrounded. The Chinese 9th Army Corps encircled them, cutting off every road, every supply line. Temperatures plunged to minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Metal froze to bare skin. Engines failed. Guns jammed. Even morphine froze solid in syringes. That's the scene behind the opening verse. Wind howling like a wolf, frostbite in the bone, jarheads outnumbered, never alone. The jarheads, of course, are the Marines, nicknamed for their high and tight haircuts that looked like jars when viewed head-on. Outnumbered nearly 10-to-1 in places, they stood together in the snowbound wilderness around Yudam-ni, Hagaru-ri, and Koto-ri. The wind howling like a wolf evokes both the Korean mountains and the predatory feeling of being hunted. Yet, as the lyric reminds us, they were never alone. Brotherhood was their armor. Foxholes frozen, hearts red hot, holding the line till their last damn shot. These lines reflect the hellish conditions around the reservoir. Marines had to chip at the frozen ground with bayonets just to dig shallow foxholes. The cold turned food to ice and blood to black slush. But even in that misery, they held the line. Around the villages of Yudam-ni, Hagaru-ri, and Koto-ri, names that now live forever in Marine Corps history. When the song says, outgunned, outflanked, with gun and blade steel-eyed ghosts in war's parade, it's pointing to something chillingly real. Many Marines fought so fiercely and in such brutal close-quarter combat that surviving Chinese soldiers later described them as devils or ghost men. The phrase steel-eyed ghosts speaks to that 1,000-yard stare of men fighting beyond exhaustion, too cold to bleed, too proud to yield. The flood imagery. Commies poured in like a tidal flood, but the 1st Division answered in blood. Describes the waves of Chinese infantry who attacked night after night. Trumpets blared, gongs clanged, their signals for attack echoing through the dark. A single Marine regiment might face thousands in one assault, yet every hill, every frozen ridge was paid for twice, first in blood, then in frost. The chorus captures the entire essence of Chosin. Give 'em hell, dig a hole left their mark, and paid the toll. No gods above, and no devils below, just 17 days of hell and snow. 17 days is historically exact. From November 27th to December 13th, 1950, the Marines fought continuously to break out of the Chinese encirclement and make it back to the sea. The line, no gods above and no devils below, strips the moment to its rawest truth. It wasn't ideology or glory pushing them forward. It was the will to survive, the fierce loyalty to the Marine beside them. The final tag of the chorus, honor unbroken, war's bitter brew, the chosen's chosen, the proud, the few, alludes to the Marine motto, the few, the proud, and baptism by ice and fire that made the survivors legendary. After Chosin, they were no longer just the 1st Marine Division. They were the Chosin Few, a name they still carry in reverent brotherhood to this day. Night dropped in with a widow's cry. Frost cut deep. Never say die. Mortars lit the sky. Rifles tore. Each shot a ghost, lost to war. In the Chosin campaign, night was both enemy and shield. The Chinese attacked under cover of darkness, often screaming and blowing bugles to sow confusion. But those nights were also frigid killers. Thousands suffered frostbite. Fingers blackened. Faces froze to rifle stocks. The lyric, "Each shot a ghost, lost to war," reflects how visibility was often just a few feet in the swirling ice mist. Every muzzle flash lit up specters in the snow, and men disappeared mid-combat, swallowed by cold or darkness. Next, the lyric turns to the moment General Oliver P. Smith, commander of the 1st Marine Division, famously refused to call it a retreat. When told by his superiors to withdraw, he said, "Retreat, hell, we're just attacking in a different direction." That military humor is echoed in the verse's darkly defiant line. The devil himself raised a brow, "We're surrounded, they can't escape now." And the rally cry that follows, "It isn't one dog, it's the whole damn breed, baptized in battle with a rifleman's creed." Dog refers to Dog Company, one of the hardest hit rifle companies in the division. But the lyric flips it. The fight wasn't carried by one company, but by every Marine unit, from artillery to engineers to frozen corpsmen. The phrase, "rifleman's creed," nods to every Marine's belief that each is, first and foremost, a rifleman, an embodiment of self-reliant, unbreakable spirit. 70 miles of hell to go. They fought through ambush, ice, and snow. Limbs were shattered, hope long dead. They crowned the hill with blood they shed. This bridge verse recounts the 70-mile fighting withdrawal from Yudam-ni down to the port of Hungnam. It's one of the most astonishing retrograde maneuvers in modern military history. A full division moving under fire through mountains, evacuating their wounded, carrying their dead, and destroying enemy roadblocks the entire way. At Toktong Pass, Fox Company 27 held a critical hill against thousands of Chinese attackers for 5 days without relief. Only a handful of them walked out. Their stand kept the route open for the division's escape. They crowned the hill, with blood they shed, is their tribute. When the narrator in the song says, "Hope long dead," it captures the bleakness of that retreat. But calling it a crown reframes sacrifice as triumph. The Chosin breakout wasn't a defeat, despite its horror. It was a feat of discipline, courage, and endurance that inflicted enormous losses on Chinese forces and preserved the division's integrity. These weren't just men, demons off the chain. Every one of them earned the name. By this point in the battle, Marines looked unnatural to witnesses. Frostbitten faces, shredded uniforms, bandaged hands gripping frozen rifles. And yet, they kept fighting. Some historians wrote that Chinese prisoners called them ghost soldiers who wouldn't die. They were starving. Ammunition was low. Medical supplies failed in the cold. But their discipline and faith in each other held. That's what earned the name. These weren't demons by nature. They were ordinary men pushed beyond the limits of humanity, and they refused to break. Remember them when the cold winds bite. The Chosin's chosen still haunt the night. This lyric is like a haunting benediction. Even today, when a cold wind cuts across the Pacific, Marines remember Chosin. In the Corps, the Chosin Few are treated with the same reverence as the flag raisers at Iwo Jima, warriors who did the impossible with nothing but grit and loyalty. After 17 days of constant battle, the 1st Marine Division reached Hungnam Harbor. The Navy had held the port just long enough for evacuation. Nearly 98,000 troops, 17,000 vehicles, and 100,000 civilian refugees were rescued under relentless pressure. It became one of the largest amphibious evacuations in history, called the Hungnam Miracle. The survivors marched out with their banners intact. They had suffered over 17,000 casualties when wounds and frostbite are counted, but they still fought their way out and bloodied every force that tried to stop them. When reporters asked General Smith if the campaign had been a retreat, he said simply, "We came out and we brought our dead with us." That sum of dignity and sorrow defines the spirit of this song. As the outro fades, static and whispers fill the silence. We're not retreating. We're just advancing in a different direction. That's no fictional line. It's the actual battlefield message that immortalized both humor and defiance in the same breath. It's become a symbol for every Marine who faces impossible odds and keeps pushing forward. The Chosin's Chosin is both a tribute and a warning, a reminder of what courage looks like when stripped to its bones. It's not glory in victory, but grace under fire, not triumph in conquest, but endurance in the face of annihilation. When the final war drum fades, what remains is silence, and that silence is sacred. Because in that frozen valley, amid blood and snow, the Marines proved a truth that transcends history. Honor doesn't melt. Courage doesn't die. The Chosin's Chosin march forever.